she's Iranian, and first time in the church ever.
Wow.
And she comes up she's in the foyer, the cafe area, and she's like, "Am I allowed in the worship center in the main part?" And we're all like, "Yes, go ahead." She had no clue what to expect, and she heard this joyful music, and she heard the preaching and saw the water baptisms, and she was she's like, "Wow, this is really, really different." It's just one story after another, I tell you.
Hello and welcome to Reaching the Rest podcast, episode 5. This podcast was inspired by a desire to connect on a deeper level with global workers around the world, to get to know those with boots on the ground that have dedicated their lives to fulfilling the Great Commission and to hear their stories. My name is Amy Clausen, and I'm the missions director at Bethel's Rock Church in Minnesota. In today's episode, we have the honor of speaking with David and Kami Buckley, who live and serve in Hungary. Hi, David and Karmi. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hi.
Can we just start off with you guys telling us a little bit about yourselves and your ministry?
Okay, I guess I'm going. Hi. So we're Dave and Karmi. We've been missionaries with the Assemblies of God for 26 years. It will be this September we'll have been on the ground for 26 years.
Wow.
And we've had a couple different tasks and jobs that we've had in the last 26 years of ministry, and initially starting here in Budapest in the country of Hungary, in a city called Pécs. And we worked with some young adults down there. And so lots of different things, but we're so glad to be on the podcast. In the past 26 years, we've had children. They're now grown. They live in the Minneapolis area. And it's a real honor to be with you this morning, this afternoon, whatever it is for you, where it's afternoon for us here.
That's great. Yeah, it's this morning for us here. I think it's a 6 or 7 hour time difference between us. But
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Perfect. So you kind of mentioned that you've been on the field for 26 years and that you have kids now living in the Minneapolis area. But what has that looked like over the 26 years? Did you have kids born on the field? Did they come with you when you first started? What did that look like?
Well, we had no kids when we first started as missionaries, and it was just my wife and I, and we went on the field, and we had our first son in 2001, and he was born in Pécs, Hungary.
Wow.
He's born in Hungary, and then we had our daughter a few years later, and she was born in Racine, Wisconsin. So one Hungarian and one American. That's what we said, one cheesehead, one goulash guy.
Oh, that's great. And so what was that like, having kids with you in another country, and how did that kind of impact your ministry? How did you feel like being on the mission field kind of impacted their upbringing?
So I'll address that because I'm the one who birthed the child here. In many respects, because we came and, we were older when we got married. We were older when we came to the field. And I think they were kind of curious, like, do they want kids? Do they not want kids? And so right away, we said, yeah, we really would love kids. And so I do know that they started praying that we would have kids, which is kind of a cool thing on their part, And then when it was time for him to be born, and it was one of those, our missions org said we can go back to America, we could go to Vienna, we could go to different places, but babies were born in Hungary every day, and so we just kind of said, well, if babies are born every day, we can do this too. So it was a little bit, didn't really know how it all worked.
It was a little different. It's probably the hospital was probably like from the 1950s in many respects, but also very modern too.
Yeah.
So it was very different, but having kids on the field really gave us a lot of credibility to the ministry that we were having at the churches that we were ministering to.
Agreed.
And the kids really tied in because everyone loved kids and things like that. So they loved watching our kids grow up on the field.
Yeah.
And so it obviously changed our hearts, and it changed our kids' lives. and the people we worked with too.
Absolutely, yeah. I think one of the fun, the ironic stories is that in living overseas, everybody makes Samaritan's Purse boxes at Christmas.
Yeah.
And so it was one Christmas, and they're like, "You're from our church, you get a box," and we're like, "We don't need a box. Like, we make the boxes," and they're like, "No, no, no, you're part of our church, you get the box," because we were in a Hungarian church.
Yeah.
So we took the box for the kids.
You gave, thanks.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So you mentioned briefly just the fact that being on the field has changed you guys, along with just how parenting has changed you guys. But can you speak a little bit more to that? So how would you say that being on the field, doing the ministry that you're doing, living in a different culture, that has really changed who you are, how you think, how you operate?
That's a loaded question because there's so much that you could talk about. But one of the things is, I would say our trust in God is deeper, because there are times where we get support from the United States, and it comes over, and there could be many different factors happening in your support. The economy can go down in the United States. Things could get more costly here. Sometimes the dollar goes stronger, sometimes it gets weaker, and that does affect. I mean, that could be literally, if you're buying or purchasing a large item, whatever, or paying rent, that could be significantly a big difference in your pay or what you have. So, but there are many times where we feel like we're not going to be able to afford it, but then all of a sudden something flips, someone gives, or someone, some money up here, or the economy changes, the dollar gets stronger, so we can get more for our costs and stuff like that. And then we just see God just coming through every single time. And it just changes your heart on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I think it's a cool representation to our children as well, because we could say things along those lines of like that faith walk and that trust of we're reliant upon other people, and so and it was great. They always enjoyed having teams come over. They always enjoyed. We ended up planting a church in Budapest, and so they were all part of that process, and it just gives them that opportunity, just a real hands-on approach, and it's put them to where they are today. And then too, when you're a missionary, people are praying for you, and so the fact that people really just prayed for our kids, I'm so grateful for that component alone of how they prayed and covered our family over the years, from birth through now college graduation, and doing the career thing at this stage.
Yeah. I've always been kind of curious, missionaries who have kids with them on the field, what does, the itineration process, or that process of, coming back to the United States for a year, however long, and then going back, what does that look like when you have kids? Because I know I've heard, a lot of times for missionary kids, like, this isn't home for them. And so it's kind of like a backwards kind of thing.
Yeah,
it is. I mean, it is. It's home here and it's home there, but neither one will do.
Yeah,
Because we're both half worlds in each. So grandparents and aunts and uncles and relatives live in the United States, but yet they live here. Their bedrooms are here and things like that. So it's a little different in that perspective. So you have to have the mind shift of that way. And they grew up that being normal. So to us as adults, as parents, we're like, I guess we're going to get here. We'll have a bed there. We'll have a bed here. Do we have a car? Can we do this? Things like that. So they just grew up with it, and it was just normal for them.
There was a season though when we were asked to remain in the States. We were like 2 terms overseas. Third term, we got asked to work in Springfield, Missouri, where our national offices were for the Europe office. I directed the children's ministries for Europe, called Europe's Children, and Dave was working with, at the time, Greg Mundis was the regional director. So they did have a spell of America for like 6 years, 5 to 6 years, and there was this time, you say there was this time when we were getting ready. We just felt like if we don't go back now, they were 5th grade and 7th grade. If we don't go back now overseas, we're not going to be able to go in 4 years. That would be kind of unfair. So we just had made this commitment, like, this term is over and we're going back to Hungary. And it was hard for them but at this end, but now they would be like, so sad if we wouldn't. I mean, they definitely view this as home.
Yeah.
And I think recently for our son, it was like for the first time ever, he's lived as many years in America as he has in Hungary now. So it's one of those situations where it's like I've been now in both places for that long
a
time.
long time.
Yeah.
So sometimes going home to itinerate, that means for some missionary kids, you have to leave a school year. You have to make it up some way somehow.
Sure.
That means you're going through different culture. So you have the European, the Hungarian culture, and now you're going to be switching over to the American culture. Our money's different, and things are there. The bathrooms are different. The food is different. The language is different.
You don't pay for water.
Yeah, I mean, there's just different things, and they as time goes on, they learn how to adjust to that.
Yeah.
So it's good, and it's different.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. All right, changing gears a little bit, and going back to just kind of the origins of your ministry. Can you both describe that initial call to missions?
I will start because it came to me first because I'm older. I was called to missions at the age of 15. And so I felt like the Lord at a mission service was calling me to go to Europe some way, somehow. And so I felt like, I need to work towards that at a 15-year-old and started to, I actually took German in high school. So because I thought maybe this will help me out as a missionary kid. So 7 years later comes.
Yeah, it's 6 years. So yeah, I was 15 also, and I grew up in Missouri by our national offices. And so every summer, missionaries would come and go as part of their training that they would offer in the summer months, and they'd be at our church. And it was during one of those mission services that I too felt like the call to missions. And I distinctly remember walking back saying, I know I've been called to missions. And so I too did a language. Okay, I lived in Missouri. He lived in Pennsylvania. So I took Latin, the mother of all languages, but not Hungarian. So that was like a little humor. But anyway, just kind of always was focused. I went to North Central. It was like, I'll go for a teaching degree, and just knew that was what I wanted as well. And think if I never got married, I can go overseas and be a teacher somewhere, which is, a lot of people do that. But then we ended up meeting.
I actually went to Bethany Bible College in Santa Cruz, California. And then after that, got my master's in Trinity Evangelical Divinity School. And that was that time that I ended up moving over to Wisconsin, and she was living in Wisconsin at the time. And she was in Racine, I was in Kenosha, and then someone told us about each other, and we met, and there was birds singing, flowers blooming, music in the air, and
it's true.
And we discovered that we had a call on God on both our lives, and we knew that Europe was going to be that area. And you got to remember, when we were dating at that time, there was still an Iron Curtain up, and there was, it was just coming down at that time in the 1990s, early 90s, and so it was, we were thinking, where do we go? What do we do? And long story short, we got an invitation, a letter, and felt the call of God to come to Hungary. And we were like, does God want us to Hungary? And everything started pointing that way. We just knew there was a confirmation in our heart, and we just said, okay, we're going to commit ourselves to go to Hungary. And we did. So in 1999, we ended up on the field.
Wow, that's awesome. So if we can dig a little bit deeper into that process, from between the call, I guess between the joint call, like you guys meeting and, realizing that kind of this calling, this vision is aligning, and then you stepping foot in Hungary. Can we dig a little bit deeper into that process?
Yeah. So, I mean, like Dave said, I think we pretty much right away we knew, but you're not allowed to have debt to be a missionary or a little bit. So college, master's degree. So work for a little bit, but right from the get-go, I think everybody kind of knew that's where we were going. So we were on staff at a church doing the youth. Dave was youth pastor, and I was teaching. And we made the application to apply to go, and we did come over. We did take the opportunity, just with some of the connections that we had, to come over and just sit down with different people. It wasn't super common. Now a lot of people do that, kind of like a preview trip, but
Sure.
I don't think it was super common at the time.
Yeah.
Then massive applications, massive interviews. They
Yes.
came to see, and then there's, training in Springfield, and
Lots of training.
then, the itineration process is not for the faint of heart, but it's also very strengthening.
It is.
It strengthens your call, because you want to go so bad,
Yeah.
and you want to, you just want to go so bad.
You have to know you want to go.
Yeah. And then that's important, because we landed in September of 1999, and there was a very distinctive Sunday. I'm sure you remember it, Dave, like where I was ready to go home. I was, we weren't, but you know what I'm saying? But I was just like, I was just having a very sad day. It was Christmas time, and we're far from people, and no Facebook at that time, really not internet. I mean, it was a lot different.
We didn't have a phone to our house either.
Yeah. Wow. So we had a phone, but it wasn't
strong.
Yeah. So it was just a different time, and everything felt really far away. But, we knew we were going to stay. It wasn't a matter, but I just was having one of those days. But you have to know that you're where you're supposed to be at that point, because, and itineration and raising support and talking to people and talking about what you feel called, that just reaffirms over and over again where you're going and why you're going.
Yeah. And it becomes your calling, becomes an anchor, basically. The storms of life come along, you want to go home. When those feelings happen, and they do happen, that anchor puts you right where you're at. And so we're like, Lord, thank you for that. And now we've been in the country, 25 plus years, and basically this is home to us, in any sense.
Yeah.
So
that's good. So what advice would you give to somebody who is interested in missions, but they're just not sure if they're called?
I would say there are lots of different ways to go. For example, Dave and I too, even I grew up in a Christian home, and so I went on a missions trip. Dave went on a missions trip when he was in high school. I always feel like those are so valuable. Those trips for teenagers to their
comfort zone,
right, and to stretch themselves in an overseas setting. And then we went on 2 trips as a married couple and helped to host to a country in Hungary, in Europe, and again those kinds of things. But ultimately, I totally lost my train of thought. Sorry.
Can you edit that out?
Can you edit that out? What was I talking about?
We were talking about, what should you do?
Yeah. Feel called.
Yeah.
Feel called.
Yeah.
Okay.
We got it. Hang on.
Dave and I, then there's like short-term trips. So if I were to say to somebody like, go for a short-term trip, then maybe if you feel like, we have a niece that's contemplating this. Our own daughter has done 6 months overseas, and we would just say, go for it. But maybe do a 3-month, a 6-month, a 9-month, or 2-year. There's so many opportunities.
See if you like it. See if it works out.
Yeah.
There's and discover your calling. Discover what God is to you, and you'll find out quite quickly if God's calling you to missions or not.
And Dave and I kind of have a philosophy as well that we feel called to Hungary. Like if they were to come tomorrow, right now we have an international church. If they were to come tomorrow and say, listen, we need you to do something different in our country, we would obviously pray about it, but we would do it. And so we feel like you're either called to a country or you're called to a type of ministry, and then God directs you to where you need to go. So for us, we've seen different roles here and different opportunities in Hungary, but we feel committed to Hungary.
We are. We're committed to Hungary, and the role that we have, we love. We've had several roles here in Hungary, different ways of doing things. And so now we're just, happy where we're at, but we feel like it's the Hungarians that we need to reach out to. So,
but I was just talking to a team. We had a team here last week helping us with VBS summer camp, and she feels called, but she feels called to children's ministry. And I said, listen, there's lots of places that need that. So go go figure that out. If you feel called to children's ministries, let's like discover what possibilities there are for you.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So you alluded to this a little bit just now, just how you've done kind of some different things and where you are now. So can you talk a little bit more about what are some of those different things, and what are the different things that kind of have you've done and have brought you to what you're doing now?
Well, we've done things like student ministries, like Chi Alpha type ministry here in Hungary. We've done kids ministry here in Hungary. We've helped with special projects, building wise, especially with teams coming in from the United States here in Hungary, building churches and facilities. Then we eventually went to Springfield, Missouri, helped with the national office, the Europe region. And in that time period, God really started changing our way of looking at things and different things. And we started looking at churches as in like, how does this church do this? What makes them tick this way? Just out of curiosity, didn't realize what's going on. Then that whole thing changed. We ended up back on the field. And that's when the Hungarian National Church said, we want you to plant a church.
Okay.
So we're into church planting.
Wow.
But in English.
In English-speaking church planting,
Okay.
which is unusual, but it works really well.
Yeah. So that's really interesting. So it was actually the national church asking you to do that.
Yeah. They were concerned about, they have a lot of university students and they're coming to Budapest. Budapest is the capital city of Hungary. It has about 1/3 of the population here. So a lot of universities are here. And so some of the smaller villages would send their kids or teenagers, university students, to the big city, and then they get lost in the whole process. And so the idea was to have a university type church, in a sense, in English, so they could learn the English and do this and that. And that was when that was 11 years ago.
Yeah.
And we started our church at that time, and it's grown different ways in different places. So.
And it ended up not being what they had hoped it would be, but it is what it's supposed to be as of now. And we do have, it's really, for us, one of the things that way we can really work with Hungarians is in our church context. There is a lot of, maybe a couple in our church is one's Hungarian speaker and one's from the UK. And so they can't go to Hungarian speaking church, so they come to our church, or there's the doors for. When we first came, there was hardly any other cultures in our country. Maybe Asian culture was the most, but now the doors are open, and this is like the universities appeal to a lot of different
different nationalities.
African countries. So, I mean, I always say to Dave, like, we're so blessed because 10 years ago we were able to start this church. But if you would have started it 10 years before that, I don't know if it would be where it is today, just because of the dynamics of the country have, and the doors have opened, and the shift that has happened has really made our church to really, it was the right time.
Yeah. Wow, that's cool. So, can you speak more to what does that mean by, the doors were opened, both in, the cultural context of the country itself, and then also, I mean, obviously, as you said, this opened the door to start the church in the first place. It's made the church, flourish. But what other things, can you go into a little more detail about that?
Well, first of all, we started the church 11 years ago, and it's called Riverside Church Budapest. It's in the heart of the city of Budapest, and we started off with basically 12 people.
Well, there was 21 the first Sunday, but our boss was in town.
So we had a lot of guests that day.
Right.
And just to give you, so fast forward 11 years later, which is today, last Sunday we had 412 people all together.
Wow.
About 25 to 30 different nations represented.
That, but
And then we have about 25 to 30 different denominations also in our church. Full service in English. And then sometimes we have a translation from the front in Hungarian. Sometimes we have translation on headphones in Spanish. We also have groups that meet at our church. We have groups that are from different nationalities that meet that kind of associated with our church. One's a Ukrainian, one's Iranian, different places like that. So yeah, it works out really well. It gives us an opportunity not only to minister to a lot of people that are coming to the city of Budapest to work or study. It also gives them a home away from home.
Sure.
And that helps them a lot in their walk with God. In fact, we find people having a deeper walk with God because they're away from their home.
Right.
And so they're dependent on God. They're dependent on resources that are here. And we try to help them out as much as possible.
Yeah.
In that area.
Just recently, always in the summer, it's transition. So this is a big transition summer. So we have a lot of people leaving. A couple of years ago, we had about 50 people leave in one summer.
Wow.
And that's pretty, it was a lot.
It's a lot.
And this year's not as bad. But like for the other night, we were out to dinner celebrating a British lady who's changing and going into teach in another context. And at that gathering was a gal who had come from Kenya to Hungary to study. And she came to Riverside. Somebody told her about Riverside. So she came to Riverside and now she's she'll be moving to Texas to continue her education. But she said, this is super common. I come from a Catholic background, she said, and I've never experienced anything like I've experienced at Riverside. And so she said, I just really hope I can find something like that in America. And then even this past Sunday, there was they're from Botswana, but they're Indian culture heritage. And he too, one Christmas Eve, we were all together for a dinner after our program, and he was going to Catholic mass because his church religious background is Catholicism, and so he went to Catholic church. But his mom and his dad are bringing his sister to school here, so he was at our church on Sunday, and he said, "I have to tell you, I was so nervous to bring my Catholic parents to Riverside on Sunday." But he said they loved it, and they're so excited for my sister to come to go to church with me when she moves up here for college in a couple months, and that's just kind of the fun part about the whole thing is all these different people who don't have that kind of background. And recently, all the Persians.
Right. We have many Persians coming. In fact, the last time we had a baptism, we had 6 people baptized, and 4 of them were from Persian-speaking areas of Europe, Middle East. And so they made a profession of Jesus Christ and have come to that. And so we have a lot of cultures that are coming in.
Yeah.
And then also we get a chance to go into the Hungarian culture and minister to them. And so we have done like different projects within our church. One of them is a small little church out in the middle of the countryside. And it's run by a lady who's like, I think she's 84.
And maybe 4 feet tall.
And she's very small.
She's so small.
She's a sweet old lady, and it is just wonderful. And she prays up a storm. And if if she doesn't get her way, she'll pray you that God will change your heart. And let me tell you, He will change your heart. So we've been working with her. We've been working with her and helping like paint the inside of the building. We do some cleanup in the grounds and do things like that. So we're able to hopefully change, and that's what we want to continue to do, is partner with the national church here in Hungary, our church, and reach out to others so they can hear about Jesus.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm assuming that, you said you had a little bit of ministry, pastoral background in the States kind of before you went to the field. And so, when you consider that experience versus what you're doing now, I would assume looks quite a bit different.
Yes.
Yes. So can you talk a little bit about how do you navigate all of those cultures and all of those, religious backgrounds and all of those, how do you do it?
Yeah, it is a constant learning experience. You have to really kind of just be open and just willing to accept the different things. Like, for instance, I noticed there is, we have Indonesian guys that come to our church, and they're very polite and they're very courteous. And every time they say hello to me, they put their hand on their heart and they say, "Hello, Pastor," like that.
Yeah.
And I just noticed that that's what their culture is like. They put their hand on like, just your blessing. And it was just one of those little things, it's not a major thing, but you just learn to see that. No youth group
member ever did that.
No, yeah. When we were youth pastor, it's like, hey. it's a constant change and learning experience, and we
Mm,
still are meeting people from different cultures
yeah.
that I've only heard in like on the radio or TV or something
Mm,
like that. So all of a sudden they come and we're like, wow, I never met a person from your country.
yeah.
Exactly.
Wow.
And I think too, part of the reality is that you do kind of have to focus on the basics. Like,
Mm,
a common question as AG missionaries, Pentecostal church
yeah.
is thing is, do you have to speak in tongues to go to
Mm,
church here?
yeah.
And so that's not, we just say, listen, if you're saved, if you believe Jesus died on the cross for
Mm-hmm.
your sins, focus on those
Yeah.
Mhm.
the main thing, the
Mm,
main
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. So and they're most people that come, if they don't like you, they'll let you know, but they won't be there next Sunday.
Mhm.
But most time they're there. They're very grateful and very
mm,
kind.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
we do have people. I mean, just even this last Sunday, we had two guys from Australia and their
mm,
wives coming in. The 40th anniversary, they
mm-hmm.
decided to go to church.
Wow.
We've had couples who are on their honeymoon from Netherlands come to church.
Hmm.
We've had people. Yeah, it's just like, wow. Okay, thank you for coming.
Yeah, it's crazy. It is fun. It's fun.
It
Yeah.
is fun.
Yeah. So, this whole church started again because you said somebody from the national church asked you to start it. But for that to even be possible, there must have been some type of relationship or connection or trust. And so, how did you get to the point, would you say, to where you'd be asked to do something like that?
Well, I think the Hungarian leadership is the key
Hmm.
for that, and our Assemblies of God World Missions is the key to that.
Hmm.
They had a relationship before we ever came on the
Okay.
field,
Mhm.
and so they have a partnership with each other,
Mhm.
and we support them, and they support us.
Hmm.
Uh, we support them by helping them out with different projects here on the field, and they support us by signing our letters for our visas
Hmm.
to stay on the field. And so they've had a partnership before us, and then we came along and they accepted us and loved us just as with no problem whatsoever.
Mhm.
And we've had a great relationship. In fact, I would say our relationship with the national church is deeper now than ever before.
Mhm.
Hmm.
And
Mhm.
I just, I call up anyone, the vice president or president of the denomination, the Pentecostal church, and just talk to them and call them by their first name,
Yeah.
and they would be happy to talk to me. And
Mhm.
so we get along very well.
Mhm.
Hmm.
But it is a good relationship, and
And
it's important.
and it was a relationship that was forged, like Dave was saying, before we were here. And our first uh, 2 terms on the ground, we were in Hungarian church. We
Hmm.
proved ourselves by
Yeah.
being in there on Sunday nights, Wednesday,
Hmm.
Hmm.
Tuesday nights for Bible study,
Hmm.
whatever the doors were open. And that's how we learned Hungarian then as
Yeah.
well, is
Hmm.
because that forced us into those situations.
Hmm.
And so that's a part of it as well, is that we've always been a part of the Hungarian church. So
Hmm.
when we were coming back from after living in America for
Hmm.
those couple years, and it was like, what do you need? What do you want
What?
help
Yeah.
with? And again, feeling that we're here to serve them. And
Hmm.
that's when they said, would you plant this church?
Plant that
Was
church.
not what we
Wow.
thought they were going to ask. And
No,
so
that's
we
a
were
big
super
surprise.
surprised, and came in not with the necessarily, now you would go with a team and you'd have all these
Hmm.
people come. And it was just Dave and I and
Hmm.
Weston and Delane. That was it. That we were going from there.
Yep.
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 And I got to tell you, kids weren't happy, but hey.
Initially, it's like, what are you doing? But
Right.
now they're so proud.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. So you talked about, you mentioned just, missions teams coming a couple different times throughout this conversation. And I've always kind of been curious about, from like a host missionary's perspective. I don't know, what are your thoughts on your end of, a team is coming, and how that's impacting your ministry, or just kind of the thoughts and preparation and things that you're having in regards to hosting a team? Because I mean, obviously that's, I think that's a part of what you do, because it's something that you do often, but it's a different facet of your ministry.
Yeah, we love having teams come. We don't have a lot of teams come
Mm,
because it takes up a lot of time and effort. but we do like have teams come and help us with a project here in Hungary. I think one of the things that we were hoping to do is, first of all, I love having connection with the church. And if your church wanted to, if you, in fact, let's invite you come and have a team come over right now and just let's do this right now.
Right
Okay.
now.
Let's go. It's plain. So we love having teams coming over because you could talk about missions, you could pray about missions, you can, but if when you experience missions, then it changes the perspective.
Yeah.
You get to see how we work and you get to see what culture that we're in, and it opens up your eyes to pray better.
Yeah.
Even if you don't become a missionary,
Right.
you understand like what we're dealing with and how it's dealt. The other thing is we hope that you would come and God, Lord would speak to your heart and that you would become a missionary,
Yeah.
whether a missionary to another part of the world or to Hungary. I don't it doesn't matter to me, but if the Lord speaks, hopefully you will hear his voice to become a missionary.
Yeah.
And then the third thing really is you get to help us and we get to bless a group of people here in Hungary that do not know Jesus, or maybe it's a church that needs help,
Yeah.
or maybe something in our, sometimes we like VBS, our kids. We have a lot of kids that are from other churches that came to our VBS. Some of them didn't speak English.
Right.
They were speaking Korean.
Yeah.
And so it was like, okay, this is, how do we tell them about Jesus?
Right.
So it helps us in many different ways when we have teams come.
Yeah.
There is something that's the people desire to see, like experience American things, and that is why even just to have the opportunity to talk to a person that's an English speaker, because a lot of times in our school contexts here of Hungarian schools, if they're learning English, it's British English.
Oh,
So
sure.
they say things like, "Oh, I love to hear the American accent," or and so that's really fun for.
And you have a great accent in Minnesota.
Sure do.
So I mean those kinds of things. So even early on, we would take teams into the school settings, or like the high school settings, or rub shoulders we take people to see the Roma villages, the Gypsy villages, because that's such a different culture than what even Romanian culture is. So having the opportunity for people to see that now, as we're in a church setting, we let them experience really what it's like on a Sunday morning when you have denominations. I mean, so many different cultures represented in the room, and just the energy and the joy that's there. And then always, like Dave says, partnering somehow with the national church in some sort of project. So there's so many fun ways to do.
And it's so beneficial for that person that's coming and for us and for the people that we're ministering to. It's so beneficial.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Karmi, you alluded to a little bit of my next question when you were just talking about somebody from one of your recent trips that you hosted, just encouraging her with her calling to kids ministry, and how, that doesn't necessarily need to look a very specific way that maybe sometimes we get in our heads. But can you guys think of a story or something that you can share of something that either came out of a trip, or maybe even something that you heard somebody on a trip say to you about how, that experience of them being over in Hungary with you for even a short while impacted them? Something that just stands out to you guys, either from your end or the end of the people that, are in Hungary that maybe a team served, or somebody that was on a team themselves, that just really stands out when you kind of think back about the different teams that have worked with you guys.
I have one.
I have one.
Okay, you go first.
So we had a couple that came to our church, and they're retired, and they came as a special assignment. They spent 3 months with us, helping out with. He was a banker, and she was a banker too, and they worked in the banking business for many years. They both retired. They both were healthy, and they said, let's just do some missions work. So they decided to dedicate 3 months in Hungary to come, and they worked on our help with our finances. They helped with a staff notebook. different things like that. They help teach classes. They help clean our closet. They help go out to ministering to other people in other places. They were willing to do anything with that. And I got to tell you that we loved it because they just had a servant attitude, and that really helped me to realize, oh, this is great. We could use more people like that. And so that was one person that actually changed our lives, and we changed their lives because they're still doing it to this day. They still go out, they dedicate, they actually went down to Africa, they came back to Europe, they were over in Spain, and they keep on going to different places. And I'm just hoping I can get them back to Hungary because I want them back in Hungary.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I was thinking too, as you were talking and asking, was even so a couple years ago, there was another organization in town. Budapest is there's a lot of different missions organizations doing different things. And so, there was a couple gals from a church in Indiana. They had come over. They had ties to one of the couples that was part of our staff and our team here in Budapest. They met with her and were with them a couple of days. And then she was a student at a college down in Alabama. And so when she got done, she said, I want to give 6 months. And so she came and she worked with us for 6 months. Wow. And when we were getting ready to plan the VBS for this summer, she had left in March, but it was March, yeah. And then it was her church that came back and helped the VBS, and so it was like many years ago she was here. Then she was here for 6 months, and then now she's getting married, and we were jokingly saying, okay, when are you both coming back now after this? And I don't know, but it's
we're
just
planting seeds.
Just that exposure, and because of one encounter on a trip to another organization, then we had a great person working and serving with us for 6 months, and then they brought a team of 11, and it made a huge impact in the kids, and it was nice too because our team already knew who she was. Our kids program team already knew who she was when she came back. So that's just even a kind of a cool story of how it has impact that can be long term.
Definitely. You mentioned that there are different organizations and missionaries and things kind of in your area and in Hungary. What does that interaction look like? How do you collaborate with them, or how do you kind of notice, is it, this ministry maybe focuses on kind of this specific thing, or is it more of a collaboration, or what is that like?
There's a couple, like for instance, we work as a church, and as a couple, we work with different organizations here in Hungary that do things like, for instance, there's a homeless feeding program that we'd like to have our teams come and get involved with it, or even our own people. They'll hand out food, they'll hand out clothes and supplies, things like that. It's not our ministry, it's someone else's ministry. And so we help them to do that ministry, because why recreate the wheel? They're doing a great job with that area there. So
and also, we had the opportunity. We talked about our kids earlier. We lived our kids went to an international Christian school that was based here in Budapest. Most of the staff was all missionaries from different organizations that came and raised support to come be the teachers for our kids. And a lot of the missionary families had their children there. And so there is a lot of shoulder rubbing and what are you doing and how are you doing and supporting. And we're not the only church in town. No. So,
we work with them. We do projects together every so often. We have, we see each other quite often. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
And there, we had a ministry that was going into a more like a foster home system. And there was some some of the other organizations, somebody from another organization was having a team come in. They were like, hey, can we tag into what you're doing? And we're like, yeah, here's the information, go and serve go ahead and go on over. It's not proprietary to us by any stretch of the imagination. And so it's those kinds of partnerships are really invaluable. And especially in a city like Budapest, it's a hub for a lot of different organizations. And that's a cool part. And then our children too, then they had the opportunity to be in class with other organizations, and they learned one thing I think is kind of interesting is that you do learn a lot about where you stand on your in your doctrine and your
Sure.
theology, because when you're with other different organizations who's different, and it's
Yeah.
again not wrong, just different, it does kind of stretch you and makes you say, oh wow, I never really thought about that. Or and yeah, so there's some things that our kids would probably say that they had to learn and to stretch as they went to college with, I mean,
Yeah.
excuse me, high school with other students from other organizations.
Yeah.
It's been an adventure. I mean, we do work. There are times where it doesn't, work out well. But you know what? Most of the time, we're helping people, and they're saying, "Hey, we're from this place or this organization. Do you have any information on where a good hotel is, or a good
Sure.
conference center, or a good restaurant, or
Yeah.
helping out with translation, or who can write this material and so like that?" And we're like, "Yeah, no problem." And we also ask other people that way too,
Yeah.
and they tell us, "Oh yeah, this is how you do it."
I think a real thing was in 2015, there was the Syrian crisis, and all these Syrians were even coming through Greece, Macedonia, Serbia, into Hungary.
Yeah.
And school community was so cool because they were giving blankets to people, and they would literally leave the next day on a train back over to somewhere further in Europe.
Yeah.
And so the school had it was like, pick up if you bring home
Bring home a blanket.
blankets, they go in a black bag, and then parents from the school would take those bags, go and wash those blankets, and then the next day they'd be in a blue bag. So if you were going into the city, you grabbed a blue bag and took it back in to give the blankets. So there was a lot of partnership, even through crisis, that we all kind of came together.
One of the things that I learned basically as a missionary is, like, in the United States, there's different denominations, and that's pretty clear in many certain stances and stuff like that. And sometimes it needs to be, But over here, the evangelical community really stands together, and it's like we work together because we need,
in spite of our differences.
in spite of our differences, we need to. But less than 3% of the population of Hungary are Christians. I mean, a lot of them call themselves Christians, but there's a lot of need out there, and a lot of people need help, and we can work together to further the kingdom.
Absolutely. What would you guys say that your biggest win has been so far in 2025? So first 6 months of this year, what stands out?
So many.
I know.
Or you can just share whatever first comes to mind when I ask the question.
One of the things, there's just this urgency across the world, in my opinion, of young people and young adults. And I think one of the things okay, I'm going to say the word. I'm really proud of our young adults in our church, and they really are, they're inclusive to so many different people, and they really just have been, reaching out. They every Wednesday they get together, and our leaders who are from Canada, they make a meal and they have time together, fellowship, and then twice a month they have like a deep dive. It's called the living room, and they sit around for like 4 hours. They have breakfast together, and I just feel like that community is such a vital thing, because you're talking about kids who come, some of them 18 years old, who'd never been out of their home country or so far away. And that's just really like an anchoring thing. And so for me, I get really proud of our leaders there and all that they're doing. And I get excited about that. And the fact that they just recently were able to find a new place to meet, because they were meeting in somebody's apartment. And some of them started saying, it's just too many people in one apartment and I can't that. And so then they were like, we've got to find another place. So we talked to different organizations and finally found a place that they could go where they could still cook, still have the community feel that they wanted, this living room type feel that they wanted. So I'm super proud and I look forward to like how the fall is going to go and how Wes and Sean will lead this ministry into the next level because of the opportunities.
That sounds so cool.
Yeah, one.
I would say, right now we have 102 people been baptized in our church.
Wow.
And we have, for our churches across the United States, that maybe that's not a lot, but to us, that's a lot for us, especially since starting out. And many of those years here, we had COVID, and during the COVID times in Hungary, you weren't allowed to leave your building. You could not gathered together more than 10 people.
Yeah.
So you couldn't do things like that.
Mhm.
And so we had to be online, just like many places
Yeah.
in the United States. So, but we, so now with all that, we just, this year we baptized our 100th person last time, which was a couple months
awesome.
ago. So now it's 102.
Nice.
And now I'm looking for the next 100 to come along.
Yes,
98 more to
absolutely.
go.
Yeah.
And I just think it's a sign of people coming to know Jesus.
Yep,
People
absolutely.
coming to say, I confess Jesus Christ publicly
Mhm.
in front of everybody who he is to my life. So
Yeah.
my life.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, we actually, in this most recent water baptism, we had a gal who started watching us online in January, and she like wrote the church saying, just asking some questions. And, I just said, whenever you're ready, we would love to have you in person to
Yeah.
come. And one week, a bunch of us were gone for a retreat.
And our Facebook didn't work.
So we didn't have it live. We were just like, it's not going to matter. It's one Sunday.
Yeah.
So she was disappointed. And so she came the next week because she was worried that it wouldn't be happening again.
Yeah.
And then she got the water baptism class, and she was like, oh my goodness. So that day she signed up for she stayed and went to the class. And then the next Sunday she was water baptized. And, it's just a cool story. And she's just so on fire for God. And you just never know how it's going to all
She had
happen.
her friend there that was with her. She's Iranian, and first time in the church ever.
Wow.
And she comes up she's in the foyer, the cafe area, and she's like, "Am I allowed in the worship center in the main part?" And we're all like, "Yes, go ahead." She had no clue what to expect, and she heard this joyful music, and she heard the preaching and saw the water baptisms, and she was she's like, "Wow, this is really, really different." It's just one story after another, I tell you.
It's true.
Yeah. Well, last question. How can we be just specifically praying for you and better supporting you?
Right now, we are running 400, and our sanctuary holds 200.
Oh,
so we have.
Congratulations.
We have 2 services,
Okay.
and of course, that doesn't count the kids' rooms and stuff like that. That's all part of the 400 in there. So we are getting crowded,
Yeah.
and we're running out of space, and we use more space. And our building is an old discotheque, and it used to be the major discotheque in the area. And
Hungarians have come and said, I used to go here when it was a disco. So it's happened more than once.
Our video projector for the lyrics and stuff like that used to be where the mirror ball used to spin around.
Nice.
So yeah,
it's true.
And so we renovated the space for that. We changed it from a discotheque into a church, and then there was part of it. We had one half of it, and there was another half that went to another person to rent. And recently, that person owns the whole building that we are living in or renting right now. And he said, "Yeah, you should rent the other side too." And then he said, "Not right now, maybe in the future." Okay. So we're asking God to just change that man's heart so we can rent that whole new place, because that would open up our worship center to be twice the size of what we have now. So I think in theory we could hold everyone in one service if we wanted to, but we probably won't do one service. We'll probably still have the 2 services so we can grow, but we definitely need more space. We need more kid space. We need more meeting rooms. We need more things like that. So,
and like Dave was saying, like the Ukrainians, they want to have more opportunities to be in our building, or the Persians want to have more opportunities. And the Spanish we have a service one Sunday night a month for Spanish speakers in Spanish. Obviously, I'm completely in Spanish. And so they too are saying, hey, we would love to have a service even on Sunday morning. And your mind just goes like, there's so much potential, but
we don't have the space.
Yeah. And not only do we not have the space, but maybe quite financially, we're not quite there yet either, but God knows. And in the right time, it will all work out.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love it. Well, thank you guys. Oh, was it? You said it was a wedding bell?
No, it's our clock.
Well, thank you guys so much for taking the time to talk with us and share about your ministry and just life on the mission field. Again, we're so honored to have the opportunity to partner with you guys and to support the work that God has been doing through you. And we look forward to continuing to read your updates and staying in touch and just seeing what God continues to do in Hungary.
Well, thank you so much for allowing us to share our hearts. And thank you for your prayers and for your supports. They really do make a difference over here. And we do feel them every single time.
Yeah.